Okay, hey everybody, Coach Abby, Coach Logan. Today I'm going to be doing the explaining and Logan's going to be doing the demonstrating. But today we're going to be going through some shoulder assessment and mobility tools that you can use in the gym or at home, wherever you choose. Yep. So we're going to go over how the scap move, or how the shoulder moves, and then how that big bone in your back moves with your shoulder. Then we're going to go through a simple assessment that you can do at home to kind of see where your shoulder mobility is, or while you watch this video. So feel free to pause and try any of these things as you go along with the video, and as we go along. So then we're going to go through some mobility exercises, then we're going to go through stability, and then we're going to reassess at the end and any additional notes. So here we go. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, so we're going to start with the movements of the shoulder. So the shoulder itself is pretty complex joint. It moves in the most ways of any joint in our body. So it's pretty complex. There's a lot of muscles involved. We're not going to go into that part of it as much, but any questions that you do have, please put them in the comments and we can address those. But anyway, so starting with shoulder mobility or shoulder movement, and then we'll go through scapular movement because you can't really talk about how the shoulder moves without talking about how the scap moves, because they always move together. So, and they can be, one can move in a way that shows you have a lot of range of motion, and then your scap could be in a position that you wouldn't want it to be in that range of motion. So it's really important to address them all together. So, and assess them all together. Anyway, so
I'm glad you're having a good time.
thanks. Yeah, this is great because there's no one here. But it's still camera, but it's far away. Anyway, all right. So start with shoulder flexion.
Straight arm.
Yep.
Over.
Yep. So the shoulder flexes.
Thumb up.
Yeah. And maximal flexion would be, as high as you can get your arm, or even a little bit further than where your shoulder actually is. Good. And then the opposite of that would be shoulder extension. Often a neglected training tool. So is shoulder extension. We focus a lot on shoulder flexion a lot of the time, and then sometimes forget about shoulder flexion. So then the shoulder also abducts. Abduct.
Oh.
Yeah. And then also adducts. Huh? Right. So adducts adds back to the body. Similar if you watched our hip video, they're basically the same exact movements of the hip. And then also your shoulder and your arm rotate. So they can create like a full circle all the way around. And then they rotate in the joint, internally and externally, just like your hip does. And then you're able to do a full circle with the joint. So nice little ball and socket. Anyway, so that's the movements of the shoulder. And every time you move your shoulder, can you face the wall? This bone and all the muscles attached to this bone, I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. This bone and all the muscles attached to this bone move with your shoulder. So if you step back a little bit, so when you flex the shoulder, like flexion, go into flexion, straight over your head. Yes. So the scap elevates, and great question. It should be retracted, so fully against your body. Sometimes you'll see people, this will wing out a bunch and you can kind of grab it. Nah, you can't do it. So that scap should be able to stay totally packed against your body the entire time, no matter which way you're moving your shoulder. So go ahead and extend back. So you can see here, again, it's totally packed down onto the spine, onto the ribs, all that good stuff. And then go ahead and bring your arm out to the side, ab and adduct. So same thing, it's totally against, and it's not flaring out at all. We'll show you flare out in the assessment portion. Maybe, yeah, we'll see if it happens. So there we go. And then, so the scapula itself has different movements that it can do. So it can elevate. So you see that the bone and all the muscles elevate. It can depress, so which is down. Same thing. Oh, there's a little bit. Yeah, little wingy happening. And then you can retract your scap, which is a lot of the times super common in training. You're really focusing on, if you're doing any kind of rowing or anything like that, a lot of the time really focusing on pulling your scaps back, squeezing your upper back like you're squeezing a pencil, like any of those kinds of things. So really heavy focus on scapular retraction, and sometimes with the scaps, the thing that gets missed is protraction. So, which is basically the scaps rounding forward, and now they're all the way over here. So if that shows you just how much they move across the body as you move your shoulders and in any direction. So your scaps move as your shoulders move. They always move together. So just something to pay attention to during your training. So, or in life. All right, so we're going to do what's called a scratch test. I'm going to come on the side. So this tests basically the rotation. It tests every motion of the shoulder all in one. So you're going to take one arm, make a fist, and bring it up as high as you can, and then across and try to touch that opposite top of your shoulder blade. So things you want to look for is what we were talking about with the scapular winging. So is the scap coming off the spine? You would know, you can kind of grab it, and you shouldn't, like there's nothing there, so I can't grab that. Is the elbow right over the shoulder? If it's dumped forward, that's a pretty good indicator that you have limited external rotation, which we did not go over internal and external rotation. So if that shoulder is dumped forward, or if you really have to like flare your chest out to reach back to try to get your hand in the right place, then that's an indicator of an imbalance. So go ahead and do the other side with the same. So again, pause the video, try these for yourself. Good. And then whenever you do side to side, you just kind of want to notice if there's any big differences from side to side, if you have a lot harder time or a lot easier time on either side, if range of motion is significantly different or anything like that. And now we're going to do the internal rotation. And so he's going to take his hand underneath and try to touch the opposite scap. So this is where you could see the winging happening. So that's an indicator of a little bit of lack of internal rotation. So the shoulder is not able to rotate forward. And then the scap pulls off of the back to help compensate to create that range of motion. So you should be able to, if you're, ideal shoulder mobility, you should be able to touch the bottom of the opposite shoulder blade with that hand without any winging happening. So go ahead and try the other shoulder. Similar thing happening here. There's a lot of winging. So that's something to just pay attention to with really any kind of shoulder movement, but specifically anything that is going to be internally rotated. The shoulder might dump forward a little bit more, or just limited ability to retract the shoulder back, or a little bit weaker mid-scap or mid-traps, low traps, all those kinds of things. But just things to pay attention to. Again, notice how those felt throughout. And internal and external rotation of the shoulder, which is something that, well, when Logan did this, that's internal and external rotation. We can show you how to assess that and kind of figure out where your range of motion is. So you want to stay at 90 degrees so the elbow is in line with the shoulders here. And then he's going to try to bring the back of his hand as far back as he can with keeping this elbow up so that it's still in line with the shoulder, keeping a straight wrist. Good. And then just try to push back as much as you can. Ribs down, core tight. Nice. Good. All right, and then flip for internal rotation. Yeah. So this time, palm's going to go towards the back, as far back as you can.
That's it.
That's it?
That's it.
Yeah.
Internal's bad.
Yeah. So as we saw on the scratch test, and again on this test, Logan's internal rotation of his shoulder is a little bit limited.
How's my scap?
Your scap's doing good.
Okay.
Nice job.
No compensation.
Yes. So that's more just a range of motion thing than it is necessarily the strength. Good. External rotation on the other side.
Oh no.
That feels different, or are you just getting a cramp?
Yeah.
And then internal rotation on the other side, again, keeping that shoulder and elbow in line. Nice. These ones can be really helpful to do with a partner, so someone can kind of keep your arm in the right place. Perfect. All right, so we have the assessment, have an idea of where you're at whenever you start, and then we're going to go through some mobility exercises and then also some stability exercises, and then we'll go through those assessments again. So let's start with a scap car, which is a scapular joint rotation, basically.
This way? Protraction, retraction?
I think that way.
Okay.
Because it's going to be scaps first, and then we'll do the shoulder car.
Okay.
So the scapular car serves as a pretty good warm-up for doing the shoulder car, which we'll show second, but cars are basically fancy. It's a controlled articulate rotation, which is a fancy word for a joint circle. It's basically trying to utilize and engage the end range of motions that you do have in all of your joints in order to gain new range of motion and build safety within that joint of accessing that range of motion. So it's really important for your joint to feel safe, to be able to, reach further back or pick something up like this. Your joint has to feel safe to be able to do that. So, and you have to train what range of motion you do have to gain new range of motion. So the scap car is going to be going through those protraction, retraction, elevation, and depression. Excuse me. All right, so hands down by your sides, make fists. So that way your palms are going to be facing you the entire time. So that way your shoulders aren't rotating as you go through. So I'm going to have you start with elevation, so scapular elevation. Good, and then you're going to stay elevated and retract your scaps back. So now he's elevating and retracting. And now you're going to stay retracted and depress your scaps. So squeezing back, pushing down. And then you're going to stay down and then push forward. So protract. Good. So still pushing the scaps down as much as he can and pushing them forward at the same time. Now he's going to be pushing forward and elevate. So pushing forward and up. And now go back into elevation and retraction. Good. And then back down to retraction and depression. Depression, protraction, kind of creating that full circle all the way around. Good. And then elevation, protraction. Good. And then back to center. Sorry, everyone. And now I'm going to have you go the opposite direction. So do a couple reps there, see how that feels. You want to start out with like 50% effort. Don't max out right away. These are really hard movements, and they're also tough on your muscles and your joints, so you don't want to put 100% effort into it right away. So start nice and easy, just get a feel for it, see where you're at. All right, so now you're going to start with elevation again, and then protraction. Good. And then depression and protraction, so down and forward. Good. And then down and back. Good. And then up and back. Take your time, take your time. Good. And then up and forward. Good. And then forward and down. And then you can relax. Amazon. Cool. So you can go through a couple reps each direction and kind of get a feel for where all that is, get an idea of what your range of motion is. But again, don't go too crazy with the effort. Start easy, work your way up. Okay, and then the next is going to be shoulder cars. So this one, I think, sideways. Yep. All right, so you're going to start, this one you're going to do a full joint circle with your shoulder. So you're going to start by bringing your hand up, raising your hand up towards the ceiling. Just do one at a time. And on the way up, you're going to rotate your palm out to the outside. So you're going to get that rotation. And then you're going to push down and back into extension. Sorry, shoulder extension. And then try to keep your shoulders as square as you can. Good. And shoulder extension, and then try to squeeze your arm back as much as you can, and then bring it all the way back down close to the side of your body. Good.
I feel like I just want to say that.
Yep.
Other side?
Yeah. Good. So start with palm facing your body. Hand's going to come forward, and as you bring it forward, that palm's going to rotate out. The shoulder is going to rotate. Start rotating. Nice. Good. So he's rotated out, and now he's going to try to stay rotated and extend back as much as he can. Good. Almost. Nice. Good job. And the other way. So then the reverse of the forward circle. Good. And then you can start rotating out once you hit that limit at the back. It's going to be limited. Good. Nice. And again, you want to keep your core tight, ribs down, body square, so that way you're not compensating by moving your body around to create more range of motion in the shoulder. You really want to focus on all that movement coming through the actual socket of your shoulder. Nice. Nice. Butterfly swimming. Yep. Cool. Those are shoulder cars. Go ahead and pause the video, do a couple. Same thing, 3 to 5 easy reps. Just get a feel for where your shoulders are at. All right, so the next two are, so those were your mobility exercises, focusing on creating range of motion, using the range of motion you do have. And the next two exercises are going to be stability exercises. So these are kind of like accessories that you could add to some training and things like that. But your joint has to be stable and flexible in order to be mobile. So working both at the same time or in the same session is always a good thing. So start with wall slides.
Okay.
All right, so for wall slides, seated?
You talk this way or?
Yeah. So you're gonna take a seat on the ground. All right, and then bring your hands back as close as you can to the wall. Good. And then you're gonna wanna, I would say, do the fists again, and then try to keep your wrists totally straight. And then from there, you're gonna try to keep the backs of your hands and your arms against the wall and try to press up over your head as much as you can. Keeping those shoulder blades retracted, squeezing your back, making sure they're pressing against the wall. Good. And then slowly try to press your hands and your fists into the ceiling, pressing back into the wall the whole entire time. And this is an exercise that not everyone is going to have the ability to go all the way over your head. This is a really difficult exercise. So you'll go to a range of motion that feels good and comfortable. It's going to be challenging, but don't push yourself past the point of just being challenging, and then start your way back down. So this is a scapular stability exercise and a shoulder stability exercise all in one. So to make it a little bit less scap heavy, you could do it standing. That requires a little bit less core stability and shoulder mobility if you do it standing. So you could try that. You'll have to lean against the wall. So maybe like a little baby wall sit. Yep. So you can put his body's at a little bit of an angle. Then go ahead and press. Keeping your core tight. Good. I wish we had a clear wall so I could see your scaps. But it's hard to see. His upper back is pressed against the wall. That is also a helpful tool for feeling how your scaps are moving. If they're really pushing into the wall, that's going to not feel great. So just limit your range of motion there. And then I'm trying to think. I think that's that for that. Okay. All right, for the next exercise, it's going to be banded internal and external rotations. These are also a great shoulder exercise if you have heard of the rotator cuff muscles. These are great exercises to work your rotator cuff muscles, and then they're also really good for working scapular stability and helping your scap learn how to stay against your body whenever you are internally and externally rotating, which is generally one of the more difficult things to do. So this first one is going to be external rotation. So he's going to take the band across his body and then pull out and across. So keeping that shoulder locked in and creating all of that movement through the shoulder capsule. And that scap is going to be packed against the body there. Good. So all that movement's coming through the shoulder. He's opening his chest in the back, really focusing on squeezing back here and here. Good. Nice. And the elbow is also tight to the side the entire time. So show from the front. Yep. So externally rotating, you can see that all the movement is coming from here. Common mistake is to bring the elbow out to try to create more range of motion in the shoulder. It's better to keep that elbow in and limit the range that you're doing, so that way you can really feel it in the muscles behind the shoulder and then within as well. Great. Internal rotation. Good. So for internal rotation, you're going to start in kind of that ending position of the external rotation. So your hand's going to be out, and then you're going to pull across the body. Good. Again, keeping the elbow into the side and creating that movement through the shoulder. Really nothing should be moving other than, your hand is moving in your forearm, but all generated through your shoulder. Good. And then that scap is down too. It's coming up a little bit down here. So.
Does I need to work on my
Yes.
I need to work on my external rotation.
As identified in the assessment.
On this side.
Yeah.
Internal was good on this side, external was bad. Internal was bad on this side. External was good on this side.
Right.
So,
Good. Yep, and there's no winging really happening on this side at all. So, correct.
Yeah.
All right, so those internal and external rotations, you could pretty much add those onto any session. Again, don't want to overdo it, so if you're not doing them at all, adding them in once or twice a week is plenty to start. All right, so we're going to reassess the scratch test and then the internal-external rotation test, and then wrap up. All right, so scratch test, start with above, so reach your hand up and across, try to touch that opposite shoulder blade. That looks a little bit better. This is a little bit more over the shoulder. It looks a little bit more open. Good, and then go ahead and switch to the other side. Good, good. Little better. Does it feel any different?
Yeah, the internal feels a lot better than what the scapulars look like.
Bo. Good, nice. So that winging's still there a little bit, but that's not going to go away in one short session. Right. So just to clarify, it's more just the range of motion, how it feels. If your shoulder feels a little bit more open and can move a little bit more freely, that will be a good indication that something that you did here was helpful. So, all right, external rotation, hand back towards behind you. Good. Good. That looks better.
Feels a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Not cramping.
Right.
Yet.
Yeah. again. Just kidding. Good. That's a little better too.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Nice.
Better.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And it, oh, it's
We're
all.
like, oh, it's worse.
Yeah.
Cut the video.
Yeah. Edit the video to make sure to flip them.
Yeah.
And internal rotation. Yeah, well, a little better. Does it feel more?
I can feel more of a connection with my shoulder blades.
Right, set of dumping forward. Nice, very good. Well, that's a little shoulder assessment and shoulder exercises for you, and scapular exercises. Give them a try. Questions, comments, post them below. Like and subscribe if you like and also want to subscribe.
We'll do another one.
Anyway, yes.
So,
there will be more of these.
If you want to do a notification bell, hit the notification bell.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Let you know when all these videos come out.
Yep, pretty rad. All right. Happy shoulder mobility. Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody.